Hello, everybody. Welcome to Influence Now, our live broadcast in our new format. And welcome to the coronavirus era in our basement at the moment. And today I have a special guest with us to talk about some things related to, we want to be positive about what's kind of some things that are happening with the coronavirus as much as we can. And one of the things that I really want to focus on with this broadcast and some of these broadcasts, as you'll notice as we go forward with this, is we're going to have guests on, we're going to have conversations on how we can effectively move forward with our businesses, with companies that are doing different things in this world and how they're helping and how, maybe queuing up some technologies that may be able to help you. Without further ado, I'm going to pull up Chuck here, and Chuck is the founder of One Up Drones, and he, we've been actually working with you for a while on various fronts, but I thought this was a really relevant time to have you on the show, talk about how drones are really being utilized, because what a perfect technology for this current situation is having robots basically do some of our work that we can't get out and do right now because of the social distancing measures and those types of things. So I do want you to introduce yourself and talk about One Up Drones in a really, wrap it up into like a little summary on what you do and how you do it and where you're located here in Colorado. Go ahead and jump in, Chuck.
Thanks, Justin. Really appreciate the time together and to be social distancing with you today. Innovation loves a crisis is what I think we should change the name to this because that's what we're doing right now. We're all in crisis mode, and whether it be this technology, whether it be drones, it's all innovative and it's new to all of us. And just appreciate you being, on the forefront of all this. And a quick shout out, we're actually winning quite a bit of business due to the work that Cast Influence is doing for us and staying as busy as we've ever been in spite of some of the work or some of the social distancing that we're all doing. So yes, what we do, really four things when you break it down. We sell drones. One Up Aerial Drone Services has an online presence and sell quite a few different types of drones, not just the DJI and primary drones you see in the marketplace, but we also have quite a few U.S.-made drones, and I'll speak to some of those later on in the broadcast, hopefully. We also do a lot of professional services, essentially construction progress reports. We won, this is kind of the hot topic of COVID-19 and drones. We won a project down at the Colorado Convention Center just yesterday that we're tracking the progress reports of the 2,000-bed hospital that is being built in the middle of the convention center. We hope that not one of those beds gets utilized, but we're tracking and building a hyperlapse video of it all being constructed over the next 3 weeks. Then we also are into training and development using drones, trained a lot of first responders, oil patch folks, and various news agencies from across the country to date. And then finally, the fourth leg of the stool is a drone defense solution that we brought out at the end of last year called Airspace Defender. And it basically can protect the airspace if you don't want drones flying over critical infrastructure, whether it be dams, power plants, stadiums, etc. And just starting to get into that right now and begin to bring the solution to market. So that's kind of the recap of the four areas that we focus on.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck. And I think it's important. A lot of people don't think about drone defense right now, so we'll definitely hit on that today because that topic, to me, is vital, especially when you have people kind of playing around with these drones right now in their social isolation. You could definitely run into some problems protecting your property and different things. So we'll jump into that in a minute, though. So, now that we are living in coronavirus, a lot of us have probably seen, I'd pull it up if I had it in front of me right now, but a lot of us have probably seen these videos of the somber, cities and how quiet they are, which are clearly taken early in the morning before any traffic arrives, because I've seen a little bit of traffic out there. But, me personally, I don't really like those all that much. It was kind of cool the first time I saw one, but it's like really death music and like just like as if everything's going to end and we're all doomed. And I don't like to look at things that way, I guess. But it's not very relaxing in my brain to start my day with that. But what I wanted to jump into, there is so many other uses for drones right now, and I know we've seen those uses, right? But what I really want to get into is how drones are helping in a lot of different industries and a lot of different areas. You touched on a couple of them briefly, but I've read about social patrolling, for example, patrolling of borders, and maybe social distance patrolling, making sure people are wearing masks in other countries. There was an article, the border article was about Kazakhstan, and it was in GPS World that I read, and it was very interesting to see how they were actually going about making sure no one was crossing over the border at this time, and how they're trying to protect their own people from anyone contracting this as much as possible. But maybe talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing in those areas, and if you've actually had any experience actually doing some of this and how effective these things are, because I think the jury's out on how effective it is to have somebody fly a drone over you and say, hey, put your mask on, or something along those lines. So maybe you can jump on that topic first, and then we can jump into some of these other things like healthcare and construction.
Perfect. The zombie apocalypse videos that are out there, I wish right now I had some time and some of my team had some time to go out and shoot some of those. I've seen them from Dallas and Denver and from Philadelphia just yesterday. Philadelphia was amazing, and it is remarkable how quiet it is, and it is kind of creepy not seeing activity out there and people being social. The areas that we're spending our time, and I touched on it just a few minutes ago, the progress reports and being able to communicate with people remotely. So while somebody is social distancing, drones are an effective way because they are robots in the sky gathering either photos and images or data or some type of intelligence. They're gathering that information and bringing it back to somebody, whether it be another computer screen across the world, communicating with key stakeholders of construction progress. The project I mentioned earlier at the convention center, that will be used for marketing purposes and for communication to key stakeholders that are involved with the project. I've seen it also. Now, we haven't done it ourselves. There are some FAA rules against it right now, but deliveries of different medical supplies, different things across campuses and hospitals. I am of the ilk that I think we're going to see, that's probably the best use case for deliveries and drone deliveries in campus environments and hospitals to get started. I think broad brush, the things we hear about Amazon and others are quite far out and probably not realistic when you consider some of the ROI that goes with that. There's also, there was a video of a speaker on the bottom of a drone that a mayor in Italy was yelling at people out on the street that weren't minding social distancing rules and trying to get them to comply with some of that. I saw this morning in Kenya, I was on another video conference, a Zoom conference with somebody in Kenya where they have strict laws that people are facing massive fines and different, if you don't have your mask on, you have like a 20,000 shilling fine. I forget the exact amount, but it was a lot. And the rules that you're seeing in foreign countries are vastly different than what we see here in the U.S. And I think speakers on the bottom of drones, we could put them on the bottom of a Mavic Enterprise Dual, a drone that's about $3,500, $4,000, and have it play something over the speakers or do it real time. My apologies here. Here we go. I think there's also some merit to monitoring safety and quarantine in populous areas. drones can be used for real-time feeds to look at some of that. If we had, downtown Denver as an example, and people were still congregating, I don't believe they are, but if they were still congregating, that's a great way to, remotely keep people inside and communicate and, provide details to law enforcement and others. In some countries, they're starting to look at thermal imaging for temperatures and respiratory concerns of large groups of people. While Wuhan, China is beginning to improve, and last I saw there was like 10 not hospitals, but 10 groups that had begun putting people out again now, and they're using thermal imaging to look for different things. And then finally, a drone that we've just signed up and started reselling the end of last year is a digital airless Airtos 120 that they've actually attached ultraviolet lights onto the bottom of the drones for disinfecting and up to 99% success rate with disinfecting large areas, whether it be shopping malls, whether it be schools, whether it be grocery stores. A drone can do that quite quickly and get into some areas. You think about it, if a human were walking through with the disinfectant or ultraviolet light, there's going to be some shadowing effect that goes with that. There's going to be stools that get in the way and tables that get in the way. A drone can cover, through some other studies we've done, they can do about 3 times as much work as fast, 30% more work faster than what people can do on the ground. So those are some of the highlights that I'm seeing pop out of this innovation in the crisis that we're in right now.
Mm-hmm. And are you actually? I know you're participating in the construction side and helping the construction industry with some stuff. And you mentioned, I don't know if it's the city of Denver who's actually sponsoring the project you're working on down at the convention center, but what projects are you actually participating in at this moment that are helping in this situation?
That's the biggest high-profile one right now that is really quite eerie. It's a lucrative project. I'll be honest with you. I hate to take advantage of a time like this, but they are looking at quite a bit of work over the next 3 weeks, and it's in a condensed fashion. But it's visualizing and taking what is actually happening in a massive building and providing 2,000 beds, the steel structure. When you see the images that'll come out of this, there's a steel structure that'll go up for nurses' stations or the rooms themselves for patients. Hopefully they don't need the rooms. They've got oxygen tanks that are portable temporary oxygen tanks hanging down from the ceiling, which you might think, well, why is that, and what does that matter for drones? Well, from a drone standpoint, if we hit one of those oxygen lines, probably not going to have a good outcome. So you got to know what you're doing and really be safe around that. But it's the communication, it's the virtual distancing, I call it, that comes with this, that allows drones to see things that others can't. We don't have today speakers on the bottom of our drone, nor the authority to go out and tell people to go, back to where they're supposed to be. Now, some law enforcement, some first responders, some fire departments that we've sold drones to do have them, and quite frankly, I haven't had time to check in to find out if they've put them to use with the speakers and so forth. The disinfecting, I think, will come down the road. I don't think we're at a stage right now where we flatten the curve enough to begin to do that in a broad brush scenario. I expect that to happen in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note for everybody that there is restrictions to what you can and can't do still. The FAA, does restrict, and there's still some things that have to be worked through on what you can and can't do in the government, and that's why some of these use cases may not be happening as quickly as maybe you wanted me. You mentioned delivery. And then, you have the personal space, and yelling at people on the sidewalk with a speakerphone, right? That doesn't just happen. You have to get approval on those types of things. Colin, so we had a good question here, and I'm glad, again, if anyone that's on watching this, if you have comments, questions, please put them in here as we go. So Colin asked a very similar question that I just asked, and actually another question that we have floating out there from before we started was, what other use cases, other than construction progress monitoring, are you seeing or can you do? And you mentioned one of them as far as the convention center goes. We've talked about a couple other ones. Maybe there's some other things that come to mind for you. I was thinking of more some fun ones, but I also had that question beforehand too. What are some of the fun uses? So, construction monitoring, that stuff. You mentioned oil and gas earlier, or many, and actually, Colin, you just kind of clarified here, so I'm going to pull that question over. Any examples of logistics yet in the U.S.?
I don't personally have any, but that hasn't been a real key focus for us in what we're doing. I think the logistics are going to happen. As I mentioned, there's some examples out in. I can put up here.
Well, I know you do stuff in. You've done a lot of agriculture in the past. So maybe you can expand on, because part of the logistics chain and the supply chain is that agriculture aspect as well. So is there any kind of monitoring logistics-wise, anything happening logistics-wise that this could be applied to, that of that is coming around right now? Colin, I know you asked this question, but I wanted to maybe specify maybe with a direction. I might be completely wrong in the direction you're going with this, but maybe give us some direction there on what you might be seeing on that front.
Yeah, there definitely is around that. I'm glad you asked that one. We have been requested, and we won a project out on the west slope of Colorado looking at some of the saline and water supply getting to our irrigation and to our farmers. That's not necessarily right in the heartbeat of COVID-19 and coronavirus and all that we're experiencing, but the project itself was to map out or model out about 15-mile-long canal to get the farmers an extra 7 cubic feet per second of water irrigation, which equates to about 2 extra weeks of irrigation for massive farms, peach farmers, Palisade peaches, others, to help out. We're going back out again on the 20th, actually the 19th of April, to do some tunnel sections and map the internal workings of the tunnels themselves, taking our GPS less, meaning it doesn't use GPS to control the drone, out there to work on the inside of the tunnel, capture some videos and photos of what we're seeing inside of the structure of the tunnel. There's 2 tunnels. One of them's 2,600 feet long. The other one's 1,700 feet long. And we hope to gather some good details out of that. Another one just came out today for Water and Sanitation District. There is 4 ditches and water canals up north towards Iliff, Colorado, that they've asked us to model the land, to do some hydroengineering. All of this is really to eliminate some sediment that's coming on the side of the ditches, and to provide more water. It's an extremely valuable resource, and it seems to be an area that drones have helped immensely to be able to provide topographic data, provide models, 3D models, and so forth to the hydro engineers and the water and sanitation districts that are leveraging our water supply or working with our water supply to keep it safe, to provide more of it, and make sure that everyone has water as they need it. The last couple of years we've been pretty fortunate with all of the snow runoff and so forth. That's no guarantee that will happen into the future.
And I'm going to jump in there, Chuck, too, because what I think there's actually a good conversation to be had here. I've been reading a lot of articles, and probably our viewership and listeners have probably been seeing this as well, around the issues with agriculture right now and throwing away produce and the milk issue, where they're having to just, because they're not selling as much of it because the restaurants aren't necessarily buying as much, or other industries maybe not be buying as much of this food, produce, perishable food. Is there any uses of drones in those instances? Because obviously even the pickers and everybody else that's out there, I mean, there's social distancing across the board right now and worries about health. So maybe in that realm of things, can you articulate on anything that maybe drones can help with in those situations?
Sure. Two projects come top of mind to me on that. For the city of Thornton that we're working with right now, they have 27,000 acres of farmland. Who knew a city owns 27,000 acres, but they do. There's about 900 acres they've asked us to look into and provide some analysis around weed control and pest control. And drones are very effective for that. They can map the acreage in different parts of the season, whether it be spring, summer, fall, and the harvest, and look for weed control and actually hone in on, I guess is a good word, certain areas of farms that may have some weed problems and some pest problems or drainage problems that a farmer, while they know their land very well, may not know enough about it, and it gives them a macro level view. They can actually take that data, in some cases, plug it into John Deere applications and provide, very focused, prescriptive application of pesticides or weed control to certain areas of the farm. So if you've got 27,000 acres, think of the city of Thornton trying to control things, without drones. And in the past, what they might do is spray the whole farm for certain types of weeds and grasses or weeds that they're trying to eliminate. In this case, with drones, we can hone in on perhaps 100 acres or 200 acres, or don't know yet what the right amount's going to be, but it can be very prescriptive and very, very precise. The other agriculture example that I think you should bring up, or we should bring up, is the use of counting cattle and heads of farms or heads of herds and so forth. A drone can fly over large pieces of property, and there's software now that we can actually count the number of cattle and give an inventory to a farmer relatively quickly to provide, how many do you have right now and how many are lost sheep or lost, heads of cattle, and you can look at that at certain times throughout the year to do some comparison and some analysis around that. So I think the message there is the actionable intelligence and the data that we're starting to see come out of drones is remarkable. They're being used for so many other things. When I first started in this business 4 years ago, it was all about the pictures and the pretty pictures you could get and the new perspective. Now it's the data. What can you do with that data? Mm-hmm. How do you leverage it that's coming out of the sky?
I'm gonna jump into a little bit of a different topic now, not just on how drones are helping, because you are an expert also in drone defense, and right now I want to prep this a little bit, or prep this conversation a little bit by saying we all are at home right now working for the most part, unless we are an essential business or helping on the front lines at the moment. That means there is an awful lot of vacant land, vacant office space, vacant storefront, places where people can be easily burglarized right now, all kinds of different protection issues that I can see in my brain arising as this goes on longer. I think we've been pretty good as a society at this point. I haven't seen a whole lot as far as crime coverage goes, but there is some, but not a whole lot, which is great to hear. But I think there's an aspect of this right now where actually defending yourself, not against drones and what's happening, and also monitoring your property with drones, could be a really effective way to utilize this technology or utilize against this technology, depending on what aspect of that you're on. So maybe you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, you mentioned two things there that kind of different topics, but they touch on one and the same. One is securing your property, there are companies that we work with that have solutions around that. If there is similar, if you're a celebrity and you don't want somebody on your property, there are passive monitoring techniques that you can use a drone to typically integrate with other security systems and security patrols and so forth. Basically, the drone pops out of a little garage. It's set off by, it's sitting in a charging station. It's set off by a motion detector or some kind of alert. And the drone pops up, goes up, takes a look around and says, nothing's there, or hey, something's there. We need to notify somebody to do something. That's one aspect of the airspace defense and what you can do with them from a security standpoint. The other one is, and the solution that we brought out at the end of last year is essentially protecting, let's say there's 20,000 people at a rock concert in the middle of Empower Field, and that's a light turnout for that rock concert. Let's go up to 75,000. It's Garth Brooks, it's Jimmy Buffett, it's somebody like that that's extremely popular. So we got 70,000 people, 75,000 people all sitting in a stadium. The airspace defense solution is designed to work off of radar, radio frequency, acoustic noises, and then integrate and take action based upon what needs to happen in the software that the drone defense solution works with. It will take some type of action, whether it be alerting security guards, whether it be sending off a smoke bomb to defend the area, whether it be close the blinds. There's, if it's corporate espionage, you can actually, you're sitting in a board meeting, you can close the blinds and stop the listening device or something that the drone can actually have on it. So that's essentially how it works. Now, one thing I do want to point out is the natural question everybody typically asks is, well, can you take it out of the sky? The answer to that is, if you're law enforcement or military, you have the right to take it out of the sky and you can do something with it. If you're not, it's a felony. It's like shooting at an aircraft. Don't do that. So please don't do that if you're, not unless you're part of the military or law enforcement.
Quality point right there, Chuck. And we have a question from the audience. How do I secure my property with a drone or software? So you kind of touched on that a little bit, but there's very particular software that works well with this and works well with the drones. So maybe you can expand a little bit on how the software works for Ron's question here.
Is the question on securing property or securing from drones flying over the property? Securing
property with a drone or software. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the way it works is, let's say you own a 20-acre ranch and you are a celebrity, or you want to protect your property. Ron, you're protecting your property. You probably have some type of motion detectors, or maybe even pan-tilt zoom cameras, or some type of device that you're protecting it with right now. The drone would integrate with that, and basically it would sit at a discrete part of your property in a garage that is, while it's charging, while it's charging, it's in a weatherproof box. And in that weatherproof box, once it gets an alert saying, hey, drone, you need to go do something, on the back half of that property, it pops up out of the little housing and out of the garage. It goes and it takes a look at what is out there that is walking around on the property. If it's a elk or something that is wildlife, probably not going to do anything and not take any action. Person that's not supposed to be on the property, you can alert security guards, you can alert yourself. There's ways you can set it up with different applications to provide some type of an alarm, just extending it. It's kind of making, I almost hate to say it, but it's making us a little lazy in that we go out there. Normally if that were to happen, a piece of an alarm would go off or a camera would go off. You go out and you take your four-wheeler and go take a look at it. In this case, you're sending a robot in the sky off to go and take a look at it. And it would go and search the property and either take action or not based upon what you'd like for it to do.
I'm going to switch gears because we're about up on time, and I want to thank everybody for their questions. I'm going to switch gears a little bit on the business side of things because as part of our broadcast podcast, we want to also provide a little bit of insight on what businesses are doing during this time. So I know you've been able to survive and kind of flourish, and it's not necessarily taking advantage of a situation. It's just that you happen to be in a service industry that's really needed right now, and really needed just continually. So I would like to know, just what are you doing as One Up Drones for other small business owners out there, from a marketing standpoint, operations standpoint? How are you staying alive during this time period? And by the way, I want to add one thing. Ron said awesome answer. So thank you, Ron.
Thank you very much. I would say more on a personal front, Justin. I'm not sure it's corporate based. When we hang up our cleats during the day, after it's been long hours here lately, being startup business and trying to get things built. And one shout out to you, by the way, for your help with all that you've done to get us going. And the Colorado Convention Center came from Google search and what you're doing for us. So personally, hats off and thank you. I would say more on a personal front. There's a couple of things, I'm not going to pound my chest, but there's some families that we've taken to. We are way out towards the foothills of the mountains, and I found out about, through drone connections, a family over in Parker that is suffering. We took, he's got well water. The well hasn't been serviced in a number of years. He's been drinking the water. He's lost 20 pounds because he's been sick from the well water. We took a couple of cases of water plus a couple of dinners of lasagna, Caesar salad, mandarin oranges, all sorts of stuff, and drove 2 hours back and forth to get there and get him going and keep him surviving. It's those kind of personal things and personal touches that I like to do rather than sign up corporately to do things. My wife and I do quite a bit around the community. I'm part of the Evergreen Rotary. There's tons of service at 5 avenues of service that we get involved with the Rotary, and that keeps our hands and feet going there.
Yeah, and I think what you're getting at is really focus on community right now, and that'll pay off in the long run. I think we're all going to be okay the more good things we do and pay it forward. So I think that's a great answer. So I want to wrap this up, Chuck. I know some people that are probably watching, listening. We're a little over our 30-minute time period that we usually like to stay within. I will say, please do subscribe to our Influence Now podcast. We just started doing live casts on YouTube. This is going to be the format we're going to be doing going forward. We're actually going to have a set show time coming up where we're going to talk a lot about helping small businesses and conversations around how to do communication strategies, marketing strategies, and specifically around this time period where we're going through coronavirus. I think a lot of this will be valuable. We work with a lot of companies on my business side, the company that I run, on how they can communicate and get the word out and help in this current environment. So please do subscribe. Influence Now podcast is on a lot of different locations. So as soon as we get this actually recorded and then up on those podcasts, we'll have that over the next couple of days. But this will be live, and we will start broadcasting via the other mediums as well. So this be Facebook and Twitter as well, live. So please do follow us in all the places. And I want to thank Chuck for coming on with us today. And follow One Up Drones. Obviously, go to oneupdrones.com, especially if you're looking for drone help. And we'll put some details in the comments section below. Finally, if you have any more questions, please put those in the comments for this particular cast as well, and I'll make sure Chuck gets those and we can answer them. So thank you again, Chuck.
Hey, Justin, one more thing.
Yeah, sure.
We want to hear you play the guitar one of these times. All those guitars sitting in the background.
Maybe I'll do an intro song. Maybe I'll do an intro song for the broadcast going forward, because I don't want to have to pay for rights to a song. So maybe I'll just write an intro song and we'll do it. But
Thanks for putting this together.
Yeah, thank you, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds great. Have a good one. Take care, everyone.